Burning Sins, Chapter 1, Part 2. There are things that we never want to let go of, people we never want to leave behind. But keep in mind that letting go isn't the end of the world. Letting go means to come to the realization that some people, events, and even mistakes are part of your history. But they're not a part of your destiny. You'll soon learn that one of the happiest moments of your life is when you find the courage to let go of what you can't change. There's nothing quite like the salty, misty air of the beachfront, the sour yet sweet smell of the ocean, the sand covering your toes as you dig your feet under it. Honestly, such a sight and sensation is one thing Nathan grew to appreciate as he crossed from one country to another. It calmed him in a sense, helped him simmer down his emotions and take a step back to look at himself, to reflect. Whether it was on the shores of England or on the boat he cruised with to the edges of Florida, he found comfort here most times than none. Now, standing on the cliffs overlooking a near 100-foot drop into the precipice depths of the ocean below, he felt he hadn't appreciated it enough, given the current circumstances. Sitting on top of an old and classy 1962 Ferrari, Nathan swung his legs back and forth as half the sun was still peeking over the horizon. Watching as the waves gently culminate and splash onto the side of the cliffs, he took an uneasy and bated breath. The last pathogen was inside the trunk of this car. He was tied by heavy rope, gagged, and wrapped with tape to keep him from screaming. He won't be going anywhere, and for the last hour or so, Nathan hadn't heard so much as a peep from him. This was good. It made this moment easier for him to handle. Emotions running high clouded Nathan's judgment, kept him from doing things properly. This last thug was going to die. But he had to focus on the smaller details of it, the process that would drive home the conclusive points Nathan had been drilling and shooting into each of his subordinates. The saga of violence and tragedy was almost over. All that was left was to kill him. Well, him, his wife, and daughter, that is. Looking into the Ferrari's back seat, Nathan could see two girls bound and gagged, their seatbelts keeping them in place as they tried to struggle. Rolling his eyes, he jumped off the car, using the keys to pop the trunk. Walking over to it, he opened it, seeing Paxton inside. For a moment, the founder of the gang that ruined him squirmed, held firmly by the ropes, in his voice but a few muffled swears and slurs. Looking him over, Nathan pursed his lips, remembering a face like that very well. That day, when he killed all of the thugs that stood between him and his deranged mother. This man was there. Pretty ballsy for a member in the higher chain of commands to be on the front line, but Nathan knew that he got away. He ran when the tables turned on his crew. With each one dying at his feet, there was less and less of a chance Paxton was going to kill Nathan that day. He wouldn't be doing it today either. No. Instead, he was going to feel the exact same thing he did when he served his sister up to Elizabeth on a silver platter, not caring that she would be butchered and strung up in a chair like a fucking doll at a child's tea party. Still though, thinking back on everything that happened, Nathan couldn't help but chuckle. You know, you're a strange bunch of people. You aren't like the normal twisted gangs of brats and shitheads I've seen over the years. You don't parade yourself around like compensating jocks. You don't just hustle and murder because you think you can. Nathan glanced off towards the sunset. You've been trying so hard to establish yourselves as your own little rival mafia family. That alone is funny. You try to emulate what many Italian and British families follow without actually understanding what their principles are. The only thing you made was a glass empire that fell and shattered just as easily as pushing over a house of cards. You lie, you cheat, you steal, and worst of all, you take from victims what they can't ever get back. Nathan clicked his tongue as he pointed at Paxton. I'll give you credit, though. No matter what anyone says about you, you're consistent. You're consistent in fucking over anyone you can. But you should have amped up your training regimen for your boys, Packy. A smirk grew on Nathan's face as he leaned over the side of the trunk. One young man who hasn't even turned 20, took on an army that expanded over 2 whole countries. And won. No wonder the old families in Italy thought you were a fat fucking joke. You were more serious than anyone ever gave you credit for. And for so long, I wanted to put a bullet in your heart for every life you ruined. For every agreement you went back, and every deal you swindled and cheated. He shrugged, as he walked back around to the front of the trunk. But unfortunately, I don't have enough ammo for that. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to make your death painful. He took Paxton by his jaw, forcing him to look up at Nathan. Now, you get to feel what I did. You get to know what it's like to watch everything and everyone you love be broken or die horribly. You will die, just as I did that day. Left alone as you drift away and drown in selfishness. Nathan forced him into the trunk, sitting in such an awkward position that he could barely move. Stomping towards the back seats, he ripped open the door and unbuckled Paxton's wife. Dragging her out by her hair, he threw her into the dirt before pulling her around to the back of the car. The leader of the pathogen's eyes widened at seeing his captured beloved. Then Nathan took his daughter and threw her down beside her, now holding a sledgehammer. Seeing Paxton struggle and scream out muffled pleas through his taped mouth, Nathan felt a dull indifference as he approached his wife. Putting the head of the hammer on the back of her left knee, he stomped down on the underside of it with enough force to break the tendons and crack the bone. Going to her right leg and repeating this action, he began to continuously break the poor woman, slowly traveling up and cracking through everything in her body that he could break. Her pelvis, her tailbone, several segments of her spine, her ribs. She was still able to move by the time he was done, but she surely wished she couldn't. Every twitch caused excruciating pain. Paxton was now in full panic mode, trying desperately to shrug off the ropes and take off the tape. But it was no use. He had no choice but to watch as his wife was tortured inhumanely. Left to stew in her pain before Nathan rammed the sledgehammer through her torso, squashing her heart like a fruit. Leaving the hammer in the dirt beside her corpse, he walked back to the car, taking out a moderately sized machete. Approaching his daughter, Nathan brought her up to her knees, then ran her through with the blade, stabbing her through her spinal cord and tearing through her flesh as he pulled to and fro, widening the cut into a gruesome linear hole. Ripping the machete out, he stepped on her bottom half, pulling upwards as hard as he could. On the 5th yank, her organs began to give way, and at the 13th pull, Nathan had successfully ripped her in half. Somehow, the little girl was still alive, screaming over her gag. Nathan, annoyed by her shrill and nasally voice, rose her up, turned her around, and slammed her into the ground, head first. Her voice came to an abrupt silence as half of her skull violently exploded against a rock. Paxton, in tears, and no longer struggling, gasped for air as he sobbed and cried pathetically through his sticky mask. Nathan, stepping over his daughter, shoved him back into the trunk, grabbing the door. I bet that didn't feel very good, now did it? Nathan gave an uncaring look to the last pathogen, a ghost of a smile mocking him. Good thing for you. I'm not gonna kill you just yet. I'm gonna let you simmer for a moment. Let all of what just happened in the last 5 minutes too. Meanwhile, I gotta make a call. He closed the trunk door, huffing as it locked shut. Don't have too much fun without me. He turned away from the car as he heard Paxton shuffling around inside. Taking a phone out from his back pocket, he fished around through the contacts before he settled on a certain unknown number. For a moment, Nathan didn't do anything. He just lingered for a while before glancing up at the sunset. The yellow-orange light from before was now a darker orange with a touch of crimson. Night was but only a few minutes out. Breathing in, he dialed the number, bringing the phone up to his ear. Secretary del Diavolo, this is Nathan Schmidt. The pathogens have been wiped out. Their leaders, their muscle, even their bases in West Virginia, London, and San Francisco have been burned, and destroyed. He paused for a minute, not hearing a response. Licking his lips, he sniffed up to what emotions he was burying as he continued. I know I left you behind. I know I abandoned you. I was in a tough spot and I messed up, but I'm hoping by doing this last favor for the family that there will be no bad blood between us. It's time we moved on. All of us. These last 3 years won't be remembered. And the agony of the tragedy that caused all of this can finally fade away. Consider this my send-off. Tell Don Alessandro that I'm sorry. And tell Kiana to always keep that bracelet close, because I'm doing the same with the ring. Goodbye, and good luck. With that, he hung up before anyone could respond. The call set to record just in case no one was around to hear that. Shutting the phone off, he tossed it over the edge, hearing it crack as it struck one of the rocks in its descent. Rolling his shoulders, he went back to the Ferrari, reaching into the open passenger door and releasing the parking brake. Stepping out as the car rolled forward, it soon met the end of the cliffs and soared down to the ocean. Nathan didn't even watch it fall, choosing instead to gaze at the last remaining moments of the sunset. As the last of the light from the star faded, he could feel a certain weight on his shoulders dissipate. So much so that he was able to relax them, no longer held up with the pride of a soldier or the tenseness of a killer, but let loose by the conclusion of this chapter of his life. So much regret and emptiness after all of this was said and done. Maya was avenged, and the pathogens won't ever hurt the Esecatory del Diavolo anymore. It felt satisfying. But at the same time, it left him pondering if killing all of these people was right in the end. He could sympathize with the wife and child of Paxton. They didn't deserve this, despite him ending them anyways. He won't defend his more hideous actions when going after the pathogens, but at the same time, where he killed hundreds, thousands more will prosper. Kiana will grow up in a world without a target on her back from something as petty and low as gangsters, and her mother's name will not be stained with mockery. Alessandro will meet her at the gates, and when Kiana takes over, Nathan knows she'll do all right. However, he won't go back. There's too much there that will plaster Nathan to the past. So much so that it'll eat away at him until he starts having suicidal thoughts. He won't do that. He stared at Paxton and made a promise to himself and to Maya to keep on living. It won't be easy, living never was, but at the same time, he knew he would not find his destiny if he died on these cliffs with Paxton. He can't throw himself away here when he could finally put up the guns, lay down his fists, and start a new, happier life. He may not be good at anything other than fighting and killing, but someone, somewhere, may need that talent. He'll live through killing Paxton Mahler. Revenge, this time, had closed the book on what he has experienced, and a new page has begun. It was time for him to rest, to let go of the grief that burdened him, even if the regret was forever. It may plague him until the end of his days, but he will still carry on knowing he did the right thing in this weird, twisted way. Turning away from the cliffs, Nathan walked past the bodies of Paxton's family, leaving them to rot as the sun finally set and he disappeared into the calming night. Jesus, whenever someone's family is just right in front of them being tortured or even killed, that just makes my stomach turn. But the weird thing about it is that you just want to keep watching, even though it hurts. For me, at least. Now let's head on over to our deadly donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Star 630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and Caladis. Metric, JockeTF, Luciisu, Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel, Sky Sauce, and Rolan, Server, the Mordred, Omicron, Lyra, Runeside, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Rice, Soul, Shadowmoon, Luigi, Chancellor, Crust, Big Smoke, Bobcat, Murder Princess, Jet, Little Mighty, Solar Symphony, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.